Thanks to the things which are changing, because women are becoming more powerful and more influential, and in every sector, and especially when it comes to baking, definitely yes, a lot of change in baking, and we should definitely appreciate and thank Pooja for bringing this revolution, and she's one of the main persons who can actually start this change in baking industry. Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you.
Today, we are going to touch base on the journey and the story of Chef Pooja Dhingra. We also call her sweetly as Macaroon Queen of India. And this is going to be a slight interaction between me and her. I wrote a few questions with her thing. So I'll be asking a few questions about touching on the journey, and you can...
I hope I don't bore them with my answers.
Yeah,
I'll keep it short. Yeah.
And later we will be, feel free to ask any questions, because this is all about like an interaction. It is a privilege to have her today in Hyderabad, and this is a journey where we would like to know. So, Pooja, tell us something about your family. We know, I mean, I heard your family is quite obsessed for the good food.
Yeah, so, my family, it's a big problem, guys, you don't understand, because we can never lose weight in this family, because we are obsessed with food. We are the kind of people who will be eating lunch and talking about dinner. And my mother can just not get over my brother, father and me, because this is how we were raised. And my dad is, you know, the one who's obsessed with food, and that's how my brother and I got into it. And now I run a dessert shop, and my brother runs an Indian restaurant. So our fridge at one point always had butter chicken and cupcakes. So, and my brother then goes and marries a nutritionist. So now there are no cupcakes or butter chicken in the fridge, but we still we complain about that. But yeah, I come from a food obsessed family. And food is more like, you know, we travel for food. Like when we travel, all our plans are made according to, you know, restaurants that we're going to go to rather than sites. I don't remember the last time I went to a city and went to a museum, but I can tell you where to go and eat and where to go and buy ingredients. So that's my family.
Great. So how come this interesting turn has taken? I believe your initial career choice was lawyer. You're supposed to be a lawyer?
I hope there are no lawyers here.
So how that interesting turn?
Yeah, so I mean, for me it was basically, you know, I've been baking since I was little. I started when I was 6. And while I felt like everybody around me knew that I was going to get into this industry, I didn't know that yet. So I thought when I was 16, I thought let me study law. And I went to law school for exactly 2 weeks. And I saw the books and I said, this is not for me. And I'm more of a creative person. I like working with my hands. And I had the courage to go tell my family that I think I've chosen the wrong career. And they were super supportive, and they said, okay, what is it that you really like to do? And there was always this sort of dream to open a cafe even back then. So they said they believe in education, and they said education is important. So if you do want to open a cafe, then go study hospitality. And that's what took me to Switzerland. I went and studied hospitality and business both there. And yeah, so then that Switzerland, and then from there I moved to Paris to study pastry, and I don't even remember how long ago that was now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one coincidence here, you started baking and making brownies at the age of 6. I started cooking Maggi at the age of 7. But of course, no comparison. No. So, as you said, you were been to Switzerland and you pursued your baking thing. Tell us something, an interesting story about your first check when you're I think 18 years old when you did your internship.
Yeah.
And besides a small story, an interesting story about your first check. What did you purchase? What did you buy?
It sounds very vain right now, guys, but I mean, so I did my first internship in Switzerland. It was part of our program. I was doing 6 months in school, 6 months in, you know, working. And the one good thing about Switzerland is that even the minimum wage is really high. And I stayed there for 6 months, and I managed to save a certain amount of money every month. And at the end of it, it was a struggle. It was the most terrible internship of my life. I have cried every single day. My feet have bled every day. It was, you know, you go through different experiences in life, which I think teach you what is good and what is bad. I think that experience that was so bad has actually gotten a lot of good for me today. But at that point was really bad. So a little treat, I went to Geneva and I bought a little bag for myself, which I still have. But yeah, that was And now I've actually reached a point where I want to sell everything. So I've come with this philosophy of living with everything that can fit in one suitcase.
Oh.
So I don't know how that's going to go.
So
My baking stuff is only so much, but that's what I'm planning to do.
Okay, great. So in 2009, I believe you came back to India,
Yes.
to Mumbai, after graduating from Lake View,
Yeah.
one of the finest culinary schools in the world. So after you got graduated from the greatest college and you learned a lot of good recipes and the foundation was great. I want to ask what made you getting into macarons? I think tell me about the shop. What is the store and the Switzerland which made or inspired you to get
Yeah.
into macarons?
So I think it was my first weekend in Paris. I just moved from Switzerland, and it was I remember this very clearly because it was with a bunch of French friends, and they just came to me casually and they gave me 2 brands of macaroons and they were like, which one do you prefer? And I was like, wait, what is a macaroon? And they were like, you're a pastry chef, you're studying pastry in France and you've never tried a macaroon. So it was kind of like, this is insulting to us. So they told me to go the next day to this store called Pierre Hermé, and they told me to go try the Mogador macaroon, which is a passion fruit one. And I was like, yeah, okay, this is like drunken party talk. But the next day I took their advice and I went to this store, and it was in the 15th arrondissement in Paris where I lived. And I stood in line, there was a long line, and then I saw a macaroon for the first time. And I was like, oh my god, this looks like a little burger, it's so colorful, what is this? I bought the passion fruit one and I stood out, and I still remember it, I bit into it. And I think passion fruit is such an acquired taste, and it was a mix of milk chocolate and passion fruit, which is sweet and sour, acidic, and the different crunch techniques. It was just like, I started asking myself questions as to, why have I never had this before? Why did I not know what it was? Growing up in Bombay, it always felt like every restaurant had the same pastry chef, because you had like 5 pastries that were available everywhere. You got Black Forest, pineapple cake, cheesecake, and like it feels like everywhere was the same. So I started asking myself, is it because people don't like it? Is it because it's the ingredients are difficult to find? Like, what is it? Why is it not available? Then my father came to Paris and I made him eat it, and he loved it. And my dad hates everything. So if my dad likes something that is not Indian, if he likes it, then I was like, okay, if dad likes it, everyone's going to like this. We have to make it happen. So then I moved back and then said, okay, let's try. And then going to your question of,
yeah, my question was you moved to Mumbai, you tasted macarons, you might have fell in love with that, and you learned a lot of techniques.
Yeah.
But there is an international market is different in terms of like the weather is different, the climate is different. Mumbai is very hot and very humid, and your macarons texture and I think might have
it's like I was 23, 22, 23 when I moved back, and you've studied in this best school with the best ingredients, and you're on this high horse, and you come back and you're like, I'm going to be the best pastry chef, and it's like life kind of slaps you in the face and you realize what is really the reality of things here. And I still remember having this argument with my mother, because she said when I just came back, firstly I was frustrated that the recipes were not working out. Nothing that I learned in school I could use, so I had to adapt and change everything. I think it was a very humbling experience. And then I started getting I don't know if this is the same in Hyderabad, but in Bombay everybody wanted everything eggless. And suddenly I was like, this is how how do I make this sponge cake that the main ingredient is egg? How do I make it eggless? And I had a fight with my mother and said, I'm not going to do this in my shop, I'm not going to do anything eggless. And my mother just looked at me and said, you learn, And then it was a tough journey, but you kind of understand that you have to adapt to what's available. So the first thing I did was to actually see what ingredients were there, what I could do with them, work with things that worked with our temperature, with our climate. Now 10 years later, obviously there's a lot more available. You have the best chocolate, you can import everything. 10 years ago it was tough, and to kind of navigate that was difficult. And I had to eat my words, and I have an eggless baking book that's coming out in Jan. So my mother is always laughing. She's like, yeah, so you just kind of learn how to adapt, and never have anything too rigid in your mind about what you're going to do, because life as an entrepreneur is like that, right? You're just kind of making things up as you go along. We have this saying that we have on our wall in the office, which is it's like we're flying and fixing the plane at the same time, and then last week we put it, the plane is on fire. So all that is happening at the same time. Yeah.
So now you have somehow you might have fixed the recipe.
Yeah.
To how many months or how many
6 months.
6 months.
6 months of.
So it took 6 months for you to understand the reality
Yep.
coming out of college with a lot of
Yeah.
and now fixing the recipe. Easy part is done. Now the most difficult part is like setting up your
Yeah.
best venture. I would like to understand how being a 23 years old girl, okay, entrepreneurship is not easy.
Yeah.
And that too, being a girl of 23 years is also not a very easy thing. And definitely not easy. And how the journey of setting up your first venture, now you guys are known as one of the best places to have red velvet cupcake. Of course, you didn't get the macarons.
I'm sorry. We are at the Good Cow Cafe. You can go and buy some.
Do share that.
I mean, you know, it's being an entrepreneur is tough enough. I think what worked for me was that I was so inexperienced that I didn't know what I could or cannot do, couldn't do. So I didn't have the life experience to tell me this is possible, this is not. So I was like, I can do everything. And then you learn along the way what actually is possible or not. The good thing is that I had support from my family always. The bad thing is that as a 23-year-old, you realize the reality of actually interacting with people from the industry. So if I ever wanted to go sign a property or meet suppliers or anything, everybody wanted to know where my father is, where my husband is. And I was 23, so I was just like, so I just took my father along everywhere. And it just, I just knew that at the end of the day I have to get my work done. My father was happy to be involved in that sense and be there for me as a support. And I understand how privileged and lucky that is, because not everybody has that. And he was always there, so if anybody wanted to meet him, he would call them up and go with it. I still have this one, this one story when it actually hit me. So we had just set up our central kitchen and we were working out of there. And it was just 4 of us, and then someone from the government comes in and they're like, where's the owner? And then my team comes and gets me. And they're like, no. Firstly, they're shocked to see this young girl. They're like, where's the manager? And I'm like, I'm the manager, I'm the owner, I'm everything. So then he just looks at me, he's like, Kyun? Aapke husband off ho gaye? And I was like, really? This guy thinks that... I was first so taken aback that firstly, I was like, I'm 23, I'm not married. And then secondly, the only reason you will think that I'm running a business is because my husband is dead. So it's kind of like it hits you... the reality of what the situation out there is there, kind of hits you. But I think that I never knew whether it was about being a woman or whether it was about age. So I just kind of, played it to my advantage and used both being a girl and young to my advantage. Till today I send my printer messages like, please price kam kar do, and it works. So it's how you use it. No, I called him the other day and he was supposed to send me a delivery, and my office is amazed because I was like, Monday ko aayega ki nahi? And he's like, aa jayega pakka. I said, mother promise. And suddenly he's just like, acha, Tuesday. And Tuesday morning it was there. But I think there are some things as girls we can do and, use it to your advantage. Like, why does it always have to be a bad thing?
So by the way, why did you name your venture as Lady 15?
Yeah, so like I was saying, the 15th around the area in Paris is the locality was the 15th. Paris is divided into 20.
Okay.
And I lived there, I studied there, the Eiffel Tower is there. It was very, to me it was like my home for 1 year.
Okay.
And so when I moved back, I wanted people, when they walk into my pastry shop, to kind of have the same feeling that I had when I lived in Paris. So that's why the 15th.
Le is your college?
Le is just the in French, and it's the 15th, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So people call it everything from Le, Li, La, Le Pandra. I mean, we hear everything.
So what is the actual?
Le 15. It's actually Le 15, but we say 15, yeah.
Seeing your Insta following, Facebook following, and Macaroon Queen and a lot of too much of fairy tale, right? I want to understand about the challenge in this journey. of setting up venture and being there?
I mean, so I think that firstly, Instagram is a lie. No one's Instagram life is fairies and rainbows and butterflies. We try to be as real as possible, but that's a very small part of what actually goes on behind the scenes. I think that challenges are there every level, every step. It just changes from, the challenges that I faced when I started are much different than, the ones I face today. Today is about scale, about quality, about building team, about all of that, right? I feel like I have more to lose today than I did when I was 23. So I think the challenges are always there, and it's always about, you're looking at your numbers every day. If you're not hitting your targets, it's not only me and 3 other people now. We're 120 people, and
You're 120 members.
yeah, and we're growing. So you're thinking about all the families you're supporting, and it's not about you anymore. So every mistake you make is not just a mistake for you, but it's affecting other people's livelihood. So that is definitely more impactful than when you're 23 and you're a kid and just doing it with 3 people.
One thing, because you brought up your team then.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you or your firm for macarons or red velvet cupcake or something. But being an entrepreneur, you might have started at 23 with an obsession or vision that I want to set up my shop with macarons and it has to sell across the city and I should make a good money. That might be the initial thing. Now with a 120 member team, definitely you guys should have some certain values for your organization. You might have built, or last being a 1 decade, you might have built. So kindly share your values of life. I'm very much interested in knowing that.
So I think that our value system is something that we really give a lot of importance to, and it's something that is, I think it has to be. It can't just be. We have it written on our office wall, but I always say that it can't be something that's just written. That they're just words. We really have to embody it, and I've come up with it because of what I believe the brand stands for, what I've cultivated and built over the years. So we've kind of called it Spark. And it is Spark, and it comes from that, and it's each letter stands for something. So we have swiftness, we have passion, attention to detail, reliability, and the most important one, kindness. So I think that each employee, once they join the company, they run through that, and it's really the value system that we like to follow. And every time there's a tough decision, we always look at it and see, are we within this, how are we reacting, are we sticking to this? And I think that it has to be something you find that means something to you, not just because it looks good and sounds good, but actually use it as your DNA and how you function.
The moment you corrected me, I'm very cautious. What is it?
Just love.
Lavati, I know this is a place for training and also holistic learning. A lot of you give opportunities for a lot of amateur and as well as passionate chefs and bakers to be part of it. Can you say something about it?
I mean, I believe that it's important to share knowledge, and that's something that I've grown up believing. So, chef, I think that if you don't share what you know, how will your legacy sort of grow? And we've always done that. We always, our kitchen is open. We do internships. We have people coming in. And I think for me, what was most important was actually writing books and getting recipes out there. And people always find it very hard to believe. They're like, oh, are these the real recipes? I said, why would it be anything else, And they're amazed when they make it at home. They're like, oh, it tastes exactly like what you make. And I said, yeah, it is the same recipe. But I think for me, it was important to, each thing comes from a sort of problem that I have faced. And I think growing up in India and baking and fighting this whole ingredient battle and not picking up recipes that were written by people who are not Indian and not finding the ingredients, not understanding what an ounce is and what an oven temperature gas pour means, so it was always my sort of dream to write something for the Indian home baker.
Okay.
And write something where you can go to your local kirana shop and know which butter to buy and which cream to get. So I think it started with that, and then we started classes. So we have a culinary center in Bombay where we teach. So teaching is a big part of Low 15, and yeah, it's part of whether whoever comes in, whether they're working with us, whether they're coming for a class, through our Sunday baking club, we do a lot of that.
I think recently we also invited you to be part of the experience most of it.
Yeah.
Your first book, The Big Treat, the Big Book of the Treats, right?
Yeah.
Which won the second place for the pastry when it comes to World Book Awards. Tell us something about what made you write. Of course, we know now about like your passion to share the knowledge might be the thing. So
I think it was just that. It was this childhood dream to someday be an author and have a book. I used to look at recipe books, and I have a collection of over 1,000 books, and from my mother and my grandmom, like all these recipe books that I've collected, and I used to sometimes look at them as storybooks at night and just like go through them. And someday it was a dream that I want to have one of my own. And I think that when I found the actual problem that I wanted to solve, which was to write a book for the Indian home baker, I think that it just somewhere connected because there was really a need for it. And when I went to Penguin, I think I published with Penguin Random House, and they told me like, cookbooks don't sell, you're not going to make any money from this. This is a brand thing. And I was like, okay, fine, I just want to do it. So I did everything almost myself, and they were like, we'll just print 3,000 books. And, it's, if a book sells more than 5,000, it's bestseller. Okay. And we just reprinted for the 5th time. I think we've crossed 25,000. So, yeah. So I still didn't make any money from it, I think, but it's there. It's out there, yeah.
So what can we expect if at all back your book? I might be 25,000 plus one. So what can I expect from?
It's really super simple recipes. It's things that you can bake easily at home. You can make things, things that I started realizing that a lot of people, Indian homes don't even have ovens. A lot of my friends would be like, we want to bake something, but we don't have an oven at home. So a lot of the recipes are even things that you can refrigerate and, made for the Indian home. The feedback that I got from that book was that a lot of people didn't use eggs. Eggless it was like haunting me. So I said, I have to write this book and sell double of the first one. So now this eggless book is coming out in Jan. So hopefully that will solve those problems also.
I think 2 years ago, you've been part of, or you're listed as under 30 Asia list. So to actually get into that, you might be very high on discipline. You have your own goal setting, and you have your own learning. So could you kindly share how do you set your goals and how do you achieve them?
I think it's important whenever you start a business to understand that it is a full-time commitment, and it's something that you are going to be married to your job. It's at least for the first initial years, right? And I think for me, the first 4 years was so crucial because, and you don't have time to do anything, and you have to make tough choices, and you have to understand that you can't do this as part-time, and it's not something that is a plan B, but it's really immerse yourself in it. And for me, that was always my priority. I did lose a lot of friendships. I lost, I spent a lot of my youth just in the kitchen and working, but I always had clear ideas of what I wanted to do with it. So whether it was, the thing is that it's important to have short-term goals and long-term goals, because when things get hard, and they often will, you have the bigger picture to look at to know why you're doing what you're doing, because it's so easy to kind of just get dissuaded because there are so many fails every time and the wins are not as many. So it's kind of nice to have that goal to say, why am I doing this? Like, what am I getting to? So goal setting for me is important. I do it personally, I do it professionally, and I make sure that every year I set a goal which I think I can't achieve. I think it's important to kind of challenge yourself. So it was 2 years ago, it was to run the half marathon.
Okay.
I'm not a runner. It was the worst thing I've done in my life, but I did it. It was really tough, and I'm not doing it ever again. Last year, it was to go speak French in front of 4,500 people. Okay. I didn't speak French. I got a call from somebody in Paris saying, would you come talk to this audience? In my head, I was like, free trip to Paris. Yeah, let's do this. Then they told me it's in French. But they said, you have a year, and this, learning French is something I'd always wanted to do, so I took it up as a challenge. And I went, and last year I did it, and I not only, managed, I had a lot of wine before, to be very honest, but I not only spoke for 12 minutes, I actually got French people to laugh at what I was saying, so that was great. In 2 years, I want to climb Mount Fuji. Okay. That's the next big goal.
That's the next goal?
Yeah, I thought the marathon was bad. I don't know why I do this to myself. I gave up sugar for 3-4 months. I mean, I keep doing this, so I think it's important to have goals.
You gave up sugar?
I gave up sugar, yes.
I heard your team also what is the heights of all the chocolates and all?
Now they don't have to because I don't pretty much off sugar most of the time.
Okay, now.
Now, yeah, I just in April I decided to completely give it off. So for 3 months, for 120 days, there was absolutely no sugar at all. That's when I was recording my podcast, coincidentally called No Sugar Code. So it just kind of worked at the same time. Yeah.
So anyway, you got the topic. My next question was that. So tell us something about. I heard you were starting a web podcast about.
It's out. It's out. We are top podcast in the country. You must listen to it. It started with that because everybody looks at your life and they think it's glamorous, and every time anybody writes about me, it's always her life is a piece of cake and it's a cakewalk, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's tough, you know. You don't see that. You see the Forbes 30 under 30, but you don't see the 18 hours that I was in the kitchen, that I burnt my hand, that I can't walk anymore because my back is hurting. You don't see all of that. You only see the final result. And I decided that I would talk to people from the industry, from F&B all around the world, and be like, this is what I think my journey is like, for people out there. So if you guys are really, wanting to start something in food or want to hear what it's like for different chefs, it's a good thing to listen to because I talk about that. I talk to them about a completely no sugarcoat, what it is really like, what culinary school is like, what life in the real world is like, and it's fascinating because everyone's journeys are sort of the same, and you realize that it's not easy, and no one's going to tell you that it is, and if they do, they're lying.
Great. I'll subscribe to that.
Please.
So you're also a firm believer that women should be independent by all means, especially financially. So tell something about why you feel so strong about being a woman, obviously. So,
firstly, I'm going to get you a woman's picture on this wall.
I already texted my
no, I think that it's something that I grew up kind of in a family where my mom was, my mother's a homemaker, and even though she worked more than any of us, it always felt like her work wasn't important, and I think that's, she always had to sort of, even though the dynamics of the home was such that she'd always have to ask for the money. And I always felt that, I would want to be at a stage where I never want to ask anybody for money. And I think that women in general, that should be your goal. And I think that through Love 15, if there was one thing that I've learned over the years, is that for the initial years, at least till about 2 years ago, I was doing this because I was passionate. I was doing this because I loved it. But I never really got into the money aspect of it. I had someone else handling it, and that went really bad. I got cheated by myself. You decide to give away a little piece of your baby. But we are growing. We are growing fast in Bombay. We've opened a new cafe. We have 4 more in the pipeline in the next couple of months. We have 5 and we have 4 more in the pipeline. So 9 by the end of the financial year.
Only Mumbai.
In Mumbai. And we started our online macaroon deliveries. So we've already launched it in 5 cities. So you can buy macaroons online. They're shipped to you. Everything we did today in Hyderabad was all shipped here as well. So we use the same mechanics. And Hyderabad is also online now. Bangalore, and then hopefully by the end of the year, almost all over India, order online, and within 24 hours it will reach you.
Great. So Hyderabad, you're not planning any direct recruitment?
Now need more money for that, so it'll take a bit. It's a process. It'll take some time. Order online, so easy. You can order on your phone right now.
Okay. Good coffee. So few of us and few of the audience also, what do you suggest? A lot of even we come across, we host something called Handi Talks every month. It is to bring the food community together in Hyderabad to share a dialogue about success, failures, learnings and all. So half of the audience are always about, I want to open a cafe, I want to open a restaurant. It looks so glamorous.
Don't. No.
Yeah, it looks so glamorous. So what does Pooja say after being in this journey for a decade? What do you suggest for any dreamer?
I think it's important to have dreams. Firstly, don't listen to anybody, so don't listen to me either. No, I think it's important to kind of, when I was, like I was saying, when I was 23, I just wanted something, I went ahead and did it. If you would have asked me the same thing today to start all over again, because I know everything now, I'd probably think very differently. If you really have an idea that you know think is viable, speak to a few people that you really trust. Don't talk to many people about it, and really just weigh out the pros and cons of it. See what it's going to be. Make sure you get your numbers really right. Or if you are not good at it, make sure you get somebody else who comes and analyzes it, evaluates it, sees what this will turn out to be, see the best case, see the worst case, and then you just have to take a leap of faith and do it. I mean, you know, it's hard, but nothing is easy, right? No job is easy, no profession is easy. Whatever you open, whether if you're an entrepreneur, every business is tough. So at least the restaurant business is, I think that it's so tactile, it's instant sort of satisfaction. You get to make something, you see it, you get to see people actually enjoy it, consume it. So I think in that sense, it has a lot of satisfaction, job satisfaction. So it really depends on what people want to do and how invested they are in it.
So was there any case where you started with an assumption, because everyone starts with a dream of fly, right? I say that, okay, I have started this and it will fly. So it took instantly in Mumbai, or how many months or years?
I mean, it really, you know, like I said, when you're starting something, there's just so much happening that I never really had and it was just so much happening so fast that there was never a time to sort of pause and be afraid or pause and be like, what's going on? It was just like momentum of everything. So I think it did, initially it really like went off well, and then we hit a phase where we were like, okay, what do we do now, and slowed down a little bit, and now again momentum has gone up. So you know, with any business, you can't expect to always be smooth and always see a rise. There will be ups and downs, and you have to be ready to deal with that.
What does baking means to?
Baking is, to me, is magical. Like, I just think of it, and the first time I ever made something is to see really ordinary ingredients like butter, sugar, flour transform into something that is so delicious and really, you know, part of people's happiest moments and celebrations. So I just think it's like edible magic. Yes.
So, great. So the magic you spread across the cities and now.
We try.
So, where does you get inspiration from? I believe a lot of bakers take inspiration from you. I mean, where do you get your inspiration from?
Travel, I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, travel is my biggest inspiration. I can be, I just need like 5 days in a new country and I'm refreshed and I've come back with amazing ideas. So every 4 months I go somewhere I've never been. And yeah, come back with something.
I heard you picked up really interesting from Japan.
Yeah, I love Japan. Japan was great. I came back and did a whole Japanese inspired menu. So we did things with black sesame, with matcha, with wasabi, with you know, whole bunch of different things. But I think it's just that the whole, and I think that this is the most important thing. And if you know Riaz Amlani, right? So Riaz and I were having a conversation once, and talking about this, about competition and about people, you know, just copying everything that you do. And I think that he said that when you have an idea that is so uniquely yours, that flows through you, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to replicate that. And it's so visible. Like if I today just saw a pastry shop in Paris and replicated the exact same thing and put the same things on my menu, it won't have the same heart, the same soul, the same passion as if I was in Japan and tasted something, a matcha cookie, and decided what my inspiration for that was and made a matcha macaroon and sold that. I think even the way a customer would experience it would be very different if it was just a copy paste. And you can only take a copy paste that far. So really look at your own life experiences to inspire what you're doing, and then in that way it makes it unique and makes it yours and very difficult for anybody to copy.
Great. Nice to hear that you pick up your inspirations from travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So these days something called health and nutrition, and it is becoming very on the other side, Pooja is feeding a lot of sugars to people. So
I'm not eating sugar myself.
So what is your take on healthy
We
desserts?
actually do have a line of healthy desserts at Low
You already
15.
started.
We do. It's called Jump.
Jump.
Yeah, Jump by Low 15.
Okay.
And we do a lot of healthy, no sugar. We do a lot of keto cookies, brownies. Based on different diets. So it's available.
Okay.
We're on that also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you picked up it.
Yeah. No, it's when it started when I was training for the marathon actually
Okay.
3 years ago.
Okay.
Because I had stopped sugar again, and I obviously love dessert and sweets, so I started making things that I could eat, which led to this whole line.
Okay, great. So we can still enjoy macarons even though we don't want to have more sugar. Still, you guys.
Not macaroons, something else. That recipe can't be changed. Yeah.
So, final thing, tell something to our audience about what does Pooja says to have a 3 to 4 tips to have a perfect cake.
Buy it from the 15. I think in baking in general, right? Like I think it's important. It's not like cooking, so you can't just be. When I cook with my grandmom and I ask her for recipes, she'll just be like andaze se, and I'm like, in baking this andaze se doesn't work. You need to have a weighing scale, a proper digital weighing scale. Measure your ingredients. You can't approximate. I think it's important to have a great oven and really understand your oven and work with it. And then just make sure that you read recipes through and kind of understand why things are happening the way they're happening, and follow them.
Anything you like to share before we hand over the mic for audience to Q&A?
No, I'm good. Let's see if anybody has any questions.
Any questions, guys?
Hi Pooja.
Hi.
My name is Namrata. So I just want to ask you, like with the amount of things you've succeeded with, you've done a lot in terms of everything basically. So how do you manage to not get complacent about the kind of success that you've achieved? You keep driving yourself to keep doing new things, keep innovating things. So it's very easy to get complacent once you achieve that level of success. So how do you manage to avoid that?
So I think, like I was telling you, how important it is to have goals. So I have goals for every year. So they are very challenging goals. And like I told you, I set goals which I don't think I can achieve, and I have to work towards them. So I think that I'm always looking, and for me, what I really get joy and happiness is from the process of creating something. So even for example, the podcast, the whole production of it, the actually recording it, gave me so much more joy than actually the day it came out and it's #1 in India and all of that. To me, that doesn't matter. To me, what really gives me happiness is that process of creating. And so I think I'm addicted to it. So that I love that. So now I'm just thinking, what can I create next? And what can I create next? And what can I create next? So that's what gives me enjoyment, and that's what keeps me going, and not numbers, not anything else.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi. I'm Mona. I just wanted to ask you, in your journey, is there been a day when you said, okay, I can't do this anymore? I mean, it was like your biggest challenge? And you
Man, I feel like I have that almost every other day. No, it's it's something you learn to deal with. You have days like that a lot. There are 5 million problems that just arise every day that you can never expect. For example, just the day before I left from here, we have a store in Palladium in the mall, and I get a call from the mall saying there's a problem, you need to shut down today. And we were just like, we've been here for 6 years, you can't just tell us to shut overnight. They said, no, there's some problem, shut down, close. And I'm like, okay, this is now not budgeted for, it's going to go for my revenue, what are we going to do? And you have to really think fast and be like, okay, there's a problem. You can look at it and be like, this is the worst day of my life, I don't know what I'm going to do, my store is shut. Or be like, okay, I'm faced with a problem, this is what I have to work out, this is the deficit, how am I going to make up for it, and plan something like coming to Hyderabad. So, I mean, it's about that moment of thinking fast and not getting bogged down by problems. I think that's important. But having said that, there are days when you have problems that you can't really tackle, and then which is why then you have the bigger picture to look at, and sometimes you just need to pause and evaluate things and get back on.
you have any plans of starting your own school, like baking school?
This is my father's dream. He's been pushing me for years to do it. I don't know. I mean, maybe if we get some state support, we could. No, I don't know. It's maybe. I would like to. Let's see if we get the funding for it.
My second question is, what can be made? Like if you compare in states, if the moment if you say chef, it's referred as a Michelin star, something like we call as a Bharat Ratna. So even I have done my schooling from Hyderabad and Culinary. It took me 3 years to get a girl, I mean, for my marriage. So what is the notion, I mean, in our country? The moment if you say chef...
I'm still single, I don't know, yeah.
What can be done?
I
The moment
mean...
you say a chef, everyone is back. Everyone wants to give for an engineer or a doctor.
maybe that. I don't know. I think it's changing definitely. It was like that maybe 10-15 years ago, but now I think chefs, the kind of glamorous portrayal of chefs in the media and just the way chefs are perceived, it's definitely changing. I don't think it's that bad anymore. I have a lot of people that are actually engineers who've quit engineering and now are chefs. We have 3 of them in my kitchen itself, so it's a good sign. It's a good sign. We have someone here as well.
I'm doctor, so I want to be a chef.
Oh, okay, see? Yeah.
And before ending, I would like to thank Mr. Gopi for setting this beautiful launch. But most of them they are unaware of this place in Hyderabad. I think we need to market a lot.
Thanks to Tarun and Telangana Innovation Cell, basically, those are the guys who brought, there is a man standing out there. So, thanks Tarun, thanks to Telangana government who like to make F&B industry and community also to be very vibrant. And thanks to bringing chefs like Pooja Dhingra to the place. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Any other questions before we break for snacks and networking? A small token of love from our end.
Thank you. Thank you.